she said. If you don't buy me a $120,000 car before marriage, I won't marry you. So I ended the engagement, blocked her, and walked away forever. I never imagined I'd be the kind of man questioning my marriage before it even started, but here I am. I'm 34, and I've built a life where I earn about $30,000 a month. It's not something that came easy. I fought for every bit of it, and I know I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my parents. They raised me in a tiny house, made sacrifices I can never fully repay, and always believed I'd make something of myself. Now that I can finally give back, I send money to make sure they live comfortably, covering my dad's medical expenses, helping my mom renovate their home, buying them gifts here and there. It's the least I can do for the people who gave me everything when they had almost nothing. It makes me feel proud, like I'm honoring the years they struggled just to put food on the table. And for a while, I thought I had found someone who understood me. My fiancé seemed perfect in the beginning, funny, charming, always encouraging me. I felt like I had finally met someone who saw me, not just my money or my accomplishments. She'd laugh at my dumb jokes, talk about wanting to build a family together, and even claim she admired how much I cared for my parents. Back then, I thought, this is it. She's the one. But as our relationship deepened, little cracks started to show. It began so subtly, I almost ignored it. One day, I bought my mom a necklace for her birthday. When I mentioned it, she smiled, but said, "Don't you think you're overdoing it with gifts? She already knows you love her." I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just teasing. A few weeks later, my dad's health flared up and I covered his medical bills. This time, her reaction was sharper. "Why do you need to pay for that? Shouldn't your siblings pitch in? That money should be saved for us." Her tone lingered in my mind. It wasn't said in a joking way, it was almost accusing. At first, I told myself she just wanted to feel special, to know she was a priority. But slowly, the pattern grew harder to ignore. Each time I spent on my parents, she'd get quiet, sometimes visibly irritated. She started making comments like, "You spend so much on them, but what about me?" Or, "If you keep giving like this, what will be left for our future?" It wasn't just the money. Even my relationship with my parents became a point of tension. Whenever I called my mom, she would roll her eyes, sigh loudly, or sometimes interrupt the conversation with her own questions until I hung up. Once, she grabbed my phone mid-call and said, "You talk to her every day? What about me? Do you love your mom more than me?" That moment shook me more than I wanted to admit. I love my parents deeply, but that doesn't take away from loving her. Yet she acted like the two couldn't exist side by side, as if caring for my family meant I loved her less. Looking back now, I can see those early red flags for what they were. Not just jealousy, but a need to control. At the time, I convinced myself she'd adjust, that maybe she just needed reassurance. I kept telling myself, she loves me. This is just part of building a future together. But deep down, a quiet voice had already started asking, what if this is who she really is? And what if I'm ignoring it because I don't want to admit I might be marrying the wrong person? The moment everything shifted came during what should have been a normal evening. We were sitting together after dinner, talking about wedding plans, when she suddenly dropped a sentence that froze me in place. "I want a luxury car before the wedding. Not after. Before. If you don't buy it, I don't see the point in marrying you." She said it so casually, as if she were asking me to pick up groceries on the way home. A $120,000 car wasn't a wish or a dream. It was an ultimatum. I sat there in silence for a few seconds, trying to process what I'd just heard. Was she joking? Testing me? But her expression was dead serious. Her eyes locked on me, as if she were daring me to say no. Finally, I managed to reply, "That's a lot of money to spend before we even start our life together. Let's wait until after the wedding, once things settle. I'll get you a car, but let's plan responsibly." She didn't blink. Instead, she leaned back and gave me a look I'll never forget, cold, dismissive, almost like I'd failed some invisible test. "So you're saying no?" she asked flatly. I tried to explain again. "It's not about saying no. It's about timing. A car that expensive right now doesn't make sense." Her response was a sharp laugh, not amused but bitter. "I guess I was wrong about you. I thought you were the kind of man who knew how to take care of his woman. Maybe I overestimated you." That sentence stung in a way I can't fully explain. Not because I couldn't afford the car. I could. But because she equated my love and worth as a partner with how quickly I could hand over something extravagant. It wasn't about us building a life together. It was about what I could provide on demand. From that day, I started noticing how much resentment she carried whenever I did something for my parents. The phone calls became battles. If I was on the line with my mom for too long, she'd huff and say, "Why do you always need to talk to her? You're starting a new family with me. Shouldn't I be your priority now?" One night, after I hung up with my dad, she snapped, "You call them more than you talk to me." Maybe you should marry your mom since you love her so much. I remember staring at her, speechless. It wasn't just jealousy anymore, it was disrespect. And it wasn't about love, it was about control. The more I resisted, the more demanding she became. If I bought dinner for my parents, she would say, that money should have gone into our wedding fund. If I sent money for their bills, she would accuse me of choosing them over her. I tried to reassure her. I told her, taking care of my parents doesn't mean I love you any less. They're my family, and so are you. There's no competition here. But she never saw it that way. To her, every dollar I spent on anyone else, especially my parents, was a dollar stolen from her. The ultimatum about the car wasn't just a request. It was her way of drawing a line in the sand. And deep down, I knew if I crossed that line once, if I gave in, it wouldn't end there. The demands would only grow. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I realized something I had been avoiding for months. She didn't want a marriage built on love and partnership. She wanted ownership. And I had to decide how much more of myself I was willing to give up before saying enough. The breaking point came last week. My parents had been living in the same old house I grew up in. The place carried memories, but it was falling apart. Leaky pipes, cracked walls, and a roof that wouldn't make it through another winter. So, without thinking twice, I sent them $10,000 to cover renovations. To me, it wasn't a burden. It was something I wanted to do, something I felt proud of. When she found out, though, everything unraveled. She stormed into the living room, phone in hand, waving the bank notification like it was proof of a crime. $10,000? You just threw away $10,000 on them. Asterisk. I stayed calm. It's not throwing away money. It's helping my parents fix their house. They've been living in that place for decades. But she cut me off, her voice rising. You're wasting our money on them. From now on, you only spend on me. I don't want you giving a single cent to anyone else. Asterisk. Her words hung in the air, sharp and suffocating. Our money. Only on her. Not a cent for anyone else. I remember staring at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt trapped. Like I was being caged in a marriage that hadn't even begun. I tried reasoning with her. Listen, they're my parents. They sacrificed their whole lives for me. Helping them doesn't take away from us. It adds to who I am. Don't you see that? But she wasn't listening. She crossed her arms, shook her head, and said flatly, if you can't put me first, then what's the point of us? I should be the only one who matters. That was it. The moment the fog lifted, I realized this wasn't about a car, or gifts, or even jealousy. This was about control. If I gave in now, the rest of my life would be dictated by her demands. Every choice I made would be a negotiation, every dollar would be a battlefield, and my family would become collateral damage. So, I made my decision. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and typed out one final message. You don't need to come to my house anymore. My doors are closed for you. I can't give you the life you want, and I don't want to live this way. Please find someone who can meet your expectations, because I'm done. For a moment, my thumb hovered over the send button. I thought about our memories, the good days, the laughter, the moments I truly believed she loved me. But then I thought about every time she rolled her eyes when I called my mom. Every time she belittled me for helping my dad. Every time she measured my worth by how much I was willing to spend on her. I hit send. Minutes later, her reply popped up. Sweet, almost too sweet. What happened, my love? Are you upset? Let's talk, don't do this. It was jarring, the shift from rage to tenderness. But I knew better. If I opened that door, if I let her in, she would twist the conversation until I was apologizing. That was her pattern. So I didn't respond. My phone buzzed again, another message. Then another. Then 10 more. Each one trying to reel me back in with guilt, with charm, with promises she had no intention of keeping. I put the phone down and walked away. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in her presence. Clarity. The engagement was over. And for the first time, I wondered if I had just saved myself from the biggest mistake of my life. It didn't take long for things to escalate. Within 10 minutes of me sending that final text, my phone lit up with calls. 5, then 10, then 20. I ignored them all. My chest felt heavy, but I knew if I picked up even once, I'd get pulled right back into her web of guilt and promises. Then came the pounding on my front door. I checked the security camera, and there she was. Makeup smeared, hair a mess, her face wet with tears. She rang the bell over and over, her voice echoing through the hallway. Please talk to me. Don't leave me like this. We can fix it. For a second, I froze. Part of me wanted to open the door, to comfort her. I've always had a soft spot for people in pain, and seeing her like that tugged at me. But then, just as quickly, I remembered the way she grabbed my phone out of my hand when I called my mom. The way she scoffed when I helped pay my dad's medical bills. The way she dismissed me as not man enough because I wouldn't buy her a car on demand. So I stayed silent. She kept at it for nearly an hour, knocking, ringing, pacing outside. At one point, she yelled through the door, "You'll regret this. No one else will love you like I do." That sentence cut through me, but not the way she intended. It wasn't a statement of love, it was a threat. A reminder that she believed she was my only option, that without her, I was destined for loneliness. And that was the moment it became crystal clear. This wasn't about love. It was about control. I sat on the couch, the glow of the security camera on my phone in front of me, just watching her break down. She went from begging to screaming, from promising change to blaming me. It was like watching someone cycle through every stage of manipulation in real time. Eventually, her energy started to fade. She leaned against the door, sobbing, whispering things I couldn't quite make out. And then, after what felt like forever, she walked away. The silence that followed was almost deafening. My phone still buzzed with message after message. "I'm sorry, please. I didn't mean it. Let's start fresh." But I didn't reply. In that quiet, I realized something important. Every tear she shed that night, every plea, wasn't really about me. It wasn't about missing my laugh, my company, or our love. It was about the lifestyle she thought she was losing, the car, the money, the control. And as harsh as it sounds, that realization gave me peace. Because no matter how much my heart wanted to soften, my mind knew the truth. Love doesn't come with ultimatums. Love doesn't demand you cut off your family. Love doesn't measure itself in luxury cars and bank transfers. It hurt to watch her fall apart outside my door. But what hurt more was knowing that if I let her back in, my future would look exactly like that scene. Me inside, suffocating quietly, while she screamed for more from the other side. By the time she left, the tears on her face had left streaks in her makeup, and her last words still echoed in my mind. "You'll regret this." But sitting alone in my quiet apartment, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel regret. I felt relief. That night, after she finally left, I sat in the dark with only the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My phone lay face down on the table, vibrating every few minutes with another message I refused to read. I didn't want to see the words, because I already knew what they'd be: pleas, apologies, maybe even blame. It was always the same cycle. The strange thing was, instead of feeling broken or lost, I felt still. Almost like my mind had been carrying weight for months that I hadn't realized, and now it had finally slipped off my shoulders. But clarity didn't erase the memories. I couldn't help replaying moments that, back then, I dismissed as mood swings or stress. Times when she would pick a fight over nothing, just to end up with me buying her something to make it up. Times when she'd pull away emotionally until I caved in and gave her what she wanted. Looking back, I could see the pattern so clearly. Push, pull, guilt, reward. It was never about compromise, it was about control. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized she had never really respected me. Not once did she say she was proud of me for taking care of my parents. Not once did she acknowledge the effort it took to get where I am. To her, my success wasn't something to celebrate. It was a resource to mine. The morning after, I went through my messages. Dozens of them. At first, they were soft. "Please, baby, I love you. Don't do this to us. I can change." Then they turned bitter. "You're weak. You'll never find someone like me." And then back to desperation. "I'll do anything. Just talk to me." I didn't reply to any of them. Later that afternoon, I got a call from one of her friends. She said my fiancé had been crying all day, saying she made a mistake, that she didn't mean what she said about the car or my parents. I listened politely, then told her, "I wish her the best, but I can't go back. This isn't about one fight. It's about who she is." The line went quiet for a few seconds before her friend sighed and said, "Honestly, I think you're right." That gave me all the confirmation I needed. Even the people closest to her could see what I was only just accepting. But here's the thing. Walking away from someone you once loved isn't easy, even when you know it's the right decision. I kept thinking about her face at the door, the way her voice cracked when she begged me not to leave. And a small part of me wondered, what if she really changes? What if she realizes what she lost and grows from it? Then another thought followed. Even if she changes, it's not my job to fix her. And I can't gamble my future on the hope she might become someone different. That night, I wrote down everything I was feeling. I listed the red flags, the ultimatums, the way she treated my parents, the constant demands. I forced myself to see the whole picture, not just the pieces that made me nostalgic for what we used to have. Reading it back was painful, but it was also liberating. Because the truth was undeniable. The woman crying at my door wasn't mourning the loss of me. She was mourning the loss of the comfort, the security, and the luxury she thought she had secured. And deep down, I knew I wasn't the one she truly loved. The days that followed were strangely quiet. I expected her to keep pushing to show up again at my door, but instead her messages slowed. At first, I thought maybe she had finally given up. Then I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but later, when I checked voicemail, I heard her voice, soft, almost unrecognizable. Please, I know I pushed too hard. I was scared of losing you. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. Just give me one more chance. I deleted the message without replying. Not long after, she tried a different route. My cousin called to say she had reached out, asking him to convince me to talk to her. She told him she'd lost control and that she was willing to apologize to my parents if that's what it took. I listened quietly while my cousin explained, and when he finished, I simply said, she didn't lose control. That's who she is. I can't build a life on that. He didn't argue. And yet, late at night, lying in bed, I felt the pull of doubt. What if she really meant it this time? What if those tears were real? What if, by walking away, I was turning my back on someone who could have changed? But then I remembered the way she looked at me when I refused her demand for that car, the disdain in her eyes, as if I had failed some test. I remembered the anger in her voice when she told me I could never spend a cent on anyone else. That wasn't a momentary slip. That was who she revealed herself to be when the mask came off. And the truth is, peace had already started to creep back into my life. For the first time in months, I could call my parents without worrying about eye rolls or arguments. I could send money for my dad's treatment without guilt hanging over me. I could breathe in my own home without feeling like I was walking on eggshells, wondering what demand would come next. That peace was worth more than any relationship. One evening, as I sat on the porch, my mom called just to chat about her day. She told me how excited she was about the renovations, how she could finally see herself enjoying the home without worrying about leaks or repairs. Her laughter was genuine, warm, and full of gratitude. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the sky, realizing just how close I had come to losing all of that. If I had married the woman I thought I loved, I would have been forced to choose between her and the people who gave me life. That thought made me shiver. A few days later, I got one last message from her. It wasn't angry this time. It was short, almost resigned. I know I lost you. I hope someday you'll forgive me, even if we can't be together. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because there was nothing left to say. Forgiveness, maybe, would come in time, but reconciliation? No. Some doors, once closed, should never be opened again. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was free. Eventually, she stopped. The calls ended, the messages slowed, and her presence faded from my life like a storm that had finally passed. But not before she tried one last time. I was at my parents' house when my phone buzzed with a final text. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Let's talk. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. It was almost predictable, the same cycle I'd seen over and over. Anger, manipulation, sweet words, regret. And then the reset, like nothing ever happened. But this time, I didn't reply. Instead, I told my parents everything. I laid it out, the car demand, the ultimatums, the way she resented every dollar I spent on them. For a while, they just listened quietly. My mom's eyes filled with tears, but when she finally spoke, her voice was steady. I was scared you'd marry her, and she'd tear you away from us. That broke me a little. To realize my mom, who had always tried to be polite around her, had been holding in that fear the whole time. My dad put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, you didn't lose anything. You saved yourself." And in that moment, I knew they were right. The weight I'd been carrying, the doubt and second-guessing, it all lifted. I hadn't lost love. I had avoided a life of control, of being measured by what I could provide rather than who I was. Looking back now, it feels surreal. I had been blind to so many red flags because I wanted to believe love meant sacrifice. I kept telling myself she would change, that her demands were temporary, that she just needed reassurance. But love shouldn't mean erasing who you are. Love shouldn't mean turning your back on your family. And love certainly shouldn't come with ultimatums disguised as devotion. I'm not saying I was perfect in the relationship. Nobody is. But I do know this. I deserve someone who sees me, not just my bank account. Someone who values the people who raised me instead of resenting them. Someone who adds peace to my life, not conditions. Now, with the wedding off and the future wide open, my life feels lighter. I can call my parents without guilt. I can spend money where my heart tells me, not where someone else demands. And most of all, I can breathe again. She tried to guilt-trip me with tears at my door, but those tears weren't for me. They were for the lifestyle she thought she was losing. That realization still stings, but it also sets me free. So here I am, telling this story. Not to trash her, not to play the victim, but because I know others have been in situations like this, where you want to believe love is enough, but deep down, you're questioning whether it's love at all. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.